an unwelcome guest hits towns across Kentucky.
Oh my God!
A day's scars some could not imagine would ever heal.
It chokes you up. You don't know where your family is. It chokes you. But we got through it.
5 years later, the memories are vivid, the pictures still surreal.
It was just heart-wrenching. I mean, we're a poor community.
For a time, we wondered how could these towns ever find the strength to rebuild? But a bell tower is one symbol of how time can heal wounds. Tonight, how our mountain heritage helped so many triumph over tragedy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Hensley.
And I'm Neil Middleton. On this night, 5 years ago, we received our first glimpse of the devastation across this region.
Tonight, we have reporters in the areas hit the hardest on March 2nd, 2012. They have heard stories of despair, determination, and redemption. We begin by looking back at how the tornado outbreak transformed lives.
At 5:12 p.m. on the afternoon of March 2nd, Jim Caldwell and Brandon Robinson broke into programming with what would become more than 3 hours of nonstop severe weather coverage on WYMT.
The reason we are hitting the air, it is now over in Powell County. A tornado warning issued just within the last couple of minutes here.
Those tornado warnings kept coming. The weather team tracked several different storms affecting one end of our region to the other.
Reports coming in that there is a tornado on the ground, and looking at that radar signature, I'll tell you
classic.
what, I just about bet my bottom dollar that that's the case, and it is headed right toward Morgan County. If you are in West Liberty, please get into a safe location. This is a life-threatening situation. The tornado is going to be in that general location, and that means it could run smack dab into the city of Salyersville.
Jim, I'm going to interrupt you here.
Go right ahead.
Let me take you back out here because we have a tornado on the ground confirmed right here, I believe, near Bernstadt.
As the sun set, the news that was hard to swallow started trickling in.
Every report coming in is bad out of Morgan County.
Let me tell
Then
you,
the proof, the first pictures and video.
but look at that. That is enormous. Just a monster of a tornado for this area, especially.
By the 11 o'clock news, a state of emergency had already been declared in Kentucky.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Hensley. First on Night Watch, a deadly outbreak of tornadoes and severe storms has left a devastating mark all across Kentucky tonight. Even at this late hour, the full extent of the damage and the number of dead is not known. The first video from downtown West Liberty looked as though a bomb had been dropped in the heart of downtown.
We could see it forming and twisting, and we stood in our yard and watched it twist over, and it came right towards West Liberty.
And you knew when the sun came up, it would reveal unbelievable destruction not seen on a widespread scale in eastern Kentucky since the great floods of '57 and '77. The scope of the disaster hit me at the end of that 11 o'clock newscast. It's been a long night, but we all here still have our homes. Some folks out there are homeless tonight and injured, and our hearts go out to you. It's been a tough night, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. 24 people died in Kentucky on March 2nd. Half of those deaths were in Morgan and Laurel counties. Other deaths occurred in Johnson, Kenton, Lawrence, and Menifee counties. A woman was also found dead in Pulaski County after she apparently got trapped in a closet while taking shelter from the storm. Some of the victims were only teenagers. Others were elderly. Incredibly, no one died in Magoffin County, but an area known to some as Restaurant Row near the Mountain Parkway was hardly recognizable.
I just thank God that He brought me through it.
I just thank God for being able to be here to talk to you.
It just amazes me that something like this would happen in eastern Kentucky.
County and state officials could not believe the destruction. but vowed to rebuild.
I'm breaking down. I'm physically healthy. I'm mentally shot. I got to pull myself together to keep the county going.
Everybody's going to pull together, and because of that, we're going to dig our way out of this.
The horror of March 2nd was relived countless times in the days, weeks, and months ahead. With cameras everywhere these days, more images of the twisters turned up.
Lord be with us. Lord, direct that thing around us, please. Dear God in heaven. Lord.
Yeah, here it comes.
It was shocking. I didn't realize it was going to be that close.
Surveillance video showed buildings vaporized in Morgan County, debris flying through the air at the Magoffin County Health Department, and a custodian being sucked through a doorway as a school was ripped apart. There were frantic calls to 911.
My husband's cut pretty bad on his head, but we have no idea what his mother was. And they were in a trailer too.
And amazing stories of survival. One that touched the hearts of the entire nation involved a father trying to protect his 2 young children in East Bernstadt.
I was telling them it's okay, but in my mind I knew that we was dead. And I said, God, you know, I don't ask you for a whole lot. I said, but just this one time I'm going to ask you, just don't let this hurt my babies.
The wind sucked the 3 of them out of a hole in the wall, and he watched his daughter fly away. When Jason Ray Jackson came to after blacking out, he thought his daughter was dead. Despite a broken arm and wrist, he carried his son to his sister's house nearby.
And I opened the door and go to run in, and there stands my little girl.
In your sister's house?
I fell over, fell on the floor, just collapsed.
Other families were not so lucky. Connie Simpson lost her mother.
She slept with her Bible underneath her pillow every night. And when I was going through the rubble, that's the one thing that I did find was her Bible. That was laying underneath her pillow every night.
Simpson also lost her home and her sister, who was one of the hundreds injured and died more than 2 weeks after the storm. State officials say more than 2,800 homes were damaged. Of those, 810 were destroyed. FEMA approved millions for repair projects. And as always, Eastern Kentuckians pulled together to help their neighbors. A telethon on WYMT raised more than $200,000 for relief efforts.
A check for $50,000. Whoa!
Can I shake your hand on that one?
In the months following the storms, we brought you story after story of people rebuilding their homes, businesses, and lives. It will take many more months to recover. But as bad as it was, the headline on the first copy of the Licking Valley Courier published after the tornadoes might sum it up best. Thank God for sparing so many.
And you heard him there in that story. He was on the air 5 years ago, and we are happy to have former WYMT weatherman Brandon Robinson back with us tonight. Brandon and Angela Reichert are live in West Liberty, where the town is thriving again. Guys?
It's hard to believe it's been 5 years ago tonight. Very emotional for the folks here, very emotional for myself, and glad to be here with you. But I tell you one thing, the paper locally had a lot to write about after that.
They did. The Licking Valley Courier's building was destroyed, but their journalistic spirit was not.
The destruction, when I look at this and then I think about how far we've come.
For Miranda Cantrell, this is more than a paper. It's a memory of a life-changing moment.
It's really one of the proudest moments in my life because I never would have imagined that we would be able to do this.
That was her in 2012, just 1 week after a tornado ripped through West Liberty.
In some ways it seems like it was a long time ago, and in other ways it seems like it was just yesterday.
The tornado destroyed most of the town, including this building, which housed the staff at the Licking Valley Courier. But that didn't stop them. They needed to get the news out, so they improvised.
We just started getting the news out on Facebook.
Without a building, without cell service, they made it work. And just days later, the paper went to print.
It's just pretty amazing to look at now.
Almost 5 years has passed, but they say not much has changed. Sure, they have a new building, but their values remain the same.
I mean, I know it's just a weekly paper, but we put a lot of work into it, put a lot of love into it.
As Earl Kenner sits at his desk hard at work, the headline he wrote 5 years ago.
How many years ago has it been?
5.
5 years. Golly moly.
Will never be forgotten. Thank God for sparing so many.
Such amazing stories coming out of such a dark day, including this next story, Brandon.
Absolutely. There is no I in team, but as one McGoffin County school official tells you, teamwork became a big factor in pulling them back together.
What I would like to be able to do is bottle up that experience as far as how we came together and we worked as a group and how we worked as a community. And if you could do that on a daily basis, it's untelling what we could do as an area.
We've been saying this all night, but the people here are resilient, and I think the stories we've shared tonight have only proved that.
It's surreal to be standing here again 5 years to the day. Neil and Steve will send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Brandon and Angela. Still just hard to believe.
Yes, but it's so nice to see, though, the town doing so well, and they've rebuilt.
And
so
that's
many
what they
things.
wanted to do. They wanted to focus on now and the future and not look back so much. So.
Right.
Well, in McGoffin County, the tornado stayed on the ground for almost 50 miles, moving through eastern Kentucky and into West Virginia.
Former WYMT Chief Meteorologist Jim Caldwell, who was on the air that night, had a chance to speak with a family who took him through that terrifying night.
Thank you, Lord, for his food. Thank you for letting us all gather here again.
Family dinner. It's something that many people have less and less time for, but the Howard family makes sure they get together at least one night a week to eat and laugh together. That weekly meeting became a higher priority after the March 2nd tornado outbreak. That night, several members of this family were only feet away from severe injury or even death.
I'm sitting on the edge of the bathtub, and my hand was actually laying on a sink, on a vanity, and I felt it.
The sound is nowhere close to a freight train. It's more like a jet engine on steroids.
The Howards live just off the Mountain Parkway in Salyersville near what is known as Restaurant Row. Their house was destroyed that night, all while they were huddled in an interior bathroom.
The vanity was close enough to my feet that when I slid down the door, I could brace it with my feet against the vanity, and it kept the door from blowing open.
And I do thank the Lord that my mother-in-law came, because I probably would have gone to that road. She saved me, and if they hadn't come, I'd probably been out there, you know, where it took place.
My sister started singing, just want to thank you, Lord. Mom started praying, I started praying. Kids were crying, Jessica was praying.
Amidst the praying in that bathroom on that night, Jared's sister Tanika was singing. She was singing so the children in the room might not ever remember that awful sound.
The song that I sung was, I Just Want to Thank You, Lord. That was the song that came, that just, you know, in a moment like that, you don't know what to do. And that's what came out of my mouth.
And once they had the all clear,
Then we opened the door, and we opened the door to nothing when we opened the door.
So there's literally nothing right there in front of them.
Nothing. No, absolutely nothing.
And he opened the door and he said, there ain't nothing out here. I said, what do you mean? The only thing that was all together was the bathroom.
while there's no actual video of the McGoffin tornado, this surveillance video from the McGoffin County Health Department captures what they were experiencing quite well. It's only about 200 yards from the house. They rebuilt in the same spot. They didn't want to change that, but there were some changes.
It changed our town. It changed our community. I think our community grew better.
It's a community that's going to continue to grow past March 2nd, 2012. For WYMT Mountain News, I'm meteorologist Jim Caldwell.
Very personal story, I'm sure, for Jim, who is from McGoffin County. Luckily and amazingly, no one died in Salyersville that night. Coming up on this special triumph over tragedy.
We will take you live to Laurel County, where 5 years later, one family is counting their blessings.
Hello, I'm Katie Roach. I worked at WYMT from 2011 to 2013. And I can just remember walking up that hill and being floored at what I saw. The courthouse, that main little section of shops, all of it was damaged. There was damage everywhere. And I just remember thinking, this is the heart of this county, and it's completely destroyed. But then, the next year, as I continued to work there, I saw the resilience. I saw that community come together and start rebuilding. So I think it really showed how East Kentuckians really do stand together in times of need, and they are always willing to help their neighbors out in time of need.
5 years later, some in Laurel County say they remember the sights and the sounds like it was still yesterday.
Tornadoes ripped across the region, killing around 24 people, and many of those deaths were in Laurel County. Tonight, WYMT's Caleb Noe walks us through that night again with the Diaz family. Caleb?
Well, of course, it's just after 7 o'clock and the sun has almost fully set, so it was right around this time, exactly 5 years ago, that people started running toward the East Bernstadt Fire Department, as that's where crews were set up to help those impacted by the tornadoes. 6 people in this area were killed, dozens more injured, and many homes were damaged or even destroyed. One of those homes that was damaged was that of the Diaz family. Now, they lived through the storm, and their family has since grown.
Sometimes blessings come in unexpected ways. Often they are things we never asked for, but things we're thankful for nonetheless. For one family, on one day, the foremost blessing was life itself.
It was a beautiful, beautiful sunny day.
March 2nd, 2012.
All of a sudden, our TV went out.
A day Michelle and Freddie Diaz will never forget.
It got really, really dark, really, really fast.
Through Laurel County barreled an F2 tornado, folding walls like cardboard, crushing homes, and destroying nearly everything in its path.
It was more than just damage to the house that this thing caused. You know, it was mentally, you're just really damaged.
It's the sounds they heard that day that will live with them forever.
You just hear like a poof. Just it wasn't loud, it wasn't scary or anything, but the roof come off of every part of the back house except for the room we were in.
But the sounds during the storm pale in comparison to the sounds they heard after.
You hear them hollering, you know, up the road here, you know, I can't find my kids. My kids are gone. And you're just like, you don't know what to do. You know, you're in panic mode, and it's...
I started running around trying to see if I could find anybody.
Now, along with many homes in the area, the back of the Diaz family's house was all but destroyed by the tornado.
But as you can tell, they were able to get the damage fixed on the home. And most importantly, they are still here to tell the story.
We walked around here, and it just instantly just hits you. You're like, there's nothing here. How did we survive that?
Unfortunately, not everybody did. Twister claimed 6 lives, but the Diaz family was spared. They all lived through the tornado.
5 years later, it doesn't dull in any form. It stays with you just like the night that it happened.
Parents of 5 adopted children, Michelle and Freddie, count their blessings as they play on the swing set in the front yard.
Well, it never gets easier as a reporter to cover tragic situations like those deadly tornadoes, but it's always heartwarming to see how families and people turn those tragic situations into triumph. Steve, Neil.
Yes, it is. Caleb, thank you very much. Coming up, we'll go back to Magoffin County.
You'll hear from the judge executive that many say saved lives.
Hey everyone, Whitney Good here, formerly Whitney Burks, when I was working in the Big Sandy Bureau at WYMT. The thing I'll never forget is the next day going out to the same area in the daylight and looking across the right in the Hager Hill area of Highway 23 and seeing an entire neighborhood leveled that I'd never seen the night before because it was so dark. And I literally stopped my car on the shoulder of the road, got out, and cried because I'd never seen anything like that before. I think the thing that sticks out the most is how resilient Eastern Kentucky became after that and how everyone helped each other move through it. And it was really a life lesson for me to see that, and just humbling to see everyone get through it together.
Life is good all this month at Appalachian Wireless. Get the LG G5 for just $1 with sign-up or renewal of a 2-year service agreement. That's almost $100 off the regular price. The LG G5 has a forward-thinking modular design that allows you to use companion devices for enhanced camera capabilities. And with a slide-out battery that can be swapped in a flash, you'll always stay connected. Available in silver and titanium. Better service, bigger savings. That's today's Appalachian Wireless.
Home ownership is not always easy. Things break that need to be fixed. Windows, doors, drips, leaks, cracks, and creaks. Deciding what to do is hard, but it's not hard when it comes to roofs. A new metal roof is simple and easy, and it's done in a couple of days. And it's unlikely you'll ever have to deal with it again. With a #1 Galvalume metal roof from Taylor Metal Roofing and Siding in Prestonsburg and Jenkins. And it costs less. Taylor Metal is now offering standing seam roofing.
In Magoffin County 5 years ago, a tornado tore through the area known as Restaurant Row, leaving some scars that, well, are still visible today.
Judge Executive Charles Doc Hardin reflected on the events with WYMT's Corey McCauley.
The evening of March 2nd remains vivid, even 5 years later.
And we were getting ready to go to West Liberty when I was informed by Michelle that there's a tornado coming our way.
Judge Executive Charles Hardin didn't hesitate. He drove to the parkway and began warning people and closing businesses.
And I went in one place, actually picked up an elderly gentleman, took him over and dropped him off at my house, and went back out and closed down some more.
The devastation widespread. The stories of that day linger in Hardin's mind. He says the storm hit at the right time.
And 5 years later, I'm still amazed that nobody got killed. And for that, we don't have to worry about memorial services. We get to celebrate the fact that we didn't have any loss of life.
Today, Hardin says he thinks back and remembers how, even through the hardest of times, the community came together.
We went through a tornado, we went through recovery, and we all gained weight. We all took care of each other. And that is Eastern Kentucky at its finest. We stick together.
Through the disaster, Hardin says he will never forget how precious the gift of life is. In Magoffin County, Corey McCauley, WYMT Mountain News.
Coming up on this special edition of Mountain News.
A story of how on this somber day 5 years ago, one family found a little blessing.
March 2nd, 2012 was certainly a trying time for the mountains.
But one family experienced a miracle. WYMT's Allison Rogers talked to them and joins us now live from Salyersville.
That's right. While many families are remembering today for sorrow, there is one family celebrating the miracle of life. Sirens were a familiar sound on March 2nd, 2012.
It'll always be a day that I remember.
Most remember it for sorrow as more than 24 lives and countless homes were claimed by tornadoes.
A monster of a tornado for this area, especially.
It is hard to think that my day was so special, but then 15 minutes down the road, it's total destruction.
On March 2nd, 2012, Amanda gave birth to her first child at Highlands Regional Medical Center in Prestonsburg. Not long after, they were told to relocate to the hall.
We were pretty much in shock. Here, I just had my baby just enter the world, and it's supposed to be this happy moment, and then all of a sudden we're getting rushed out.
Luckily for Amanda and her newborn son, the hospital was spared that day.
I was told if the tornado had came over one more mountain, that the hospital could be part of that destruction. So it's by the grace of God that the hospital was not hit. It was it was saved by God.
On this 5-year anniversary,
My baby, my life, he'll be 5 years old, and it could have turned out different. He could have not even been here.
Amanda treasures playtime with her son.
Steve and Neil, if I had to describe the morale in Magoffin County today, it's thankful. Thankful that no lives were taken during the tornadoes 5 years ago.
That's certainly one of the most amazing parts of this, that nobody lost their lives there. Allison, thank you very much. Before we go, we want to check in one more time with Brandon Robinson in West Liberty for some final thoughts. Brandon?
Neil, Steve, live each day as it's your last. You never know when it could be. I'm personal walking proof of that, and it's been so good to be here and tell all these stories tonight. And just thank God every day for every day you have. And of course, like the Licking Valley Courier said, thank God for sparing so many.
Absolutely. Well said, Brandon. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to thank everyone involved in putting this special coverage together today, from the reporters, past and present, to everyone behind the scenes. I especially want to thank our executive producer, Kyle Collier, who's put in some very long hours making all this come together. Good night, everyone.
Good night.